Our next speaker, David Marquet, was assigned to command the nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Santa Fe, which was then ranked last in retention and operational standing. He turned his ship around by treating the crew as leaders and not followers, and giving control, not taking control. This revolutionary approach not only took the Santa Fe from worst to first, but also created more subsequent leaders than any other submarine. Stephen R. Covey called the Santa Fe the most empowering organization he'd ever seen, and wrote about Captain Marquet's leadership practices in the book, The Eighth Habit. Captain Marquet is the author of Turn the Ship Around, a true story of turning followers into leaders. When it came out, Fortune magazine named it the #1 must-read business book of the year, and USA Today listed it as one of the top 12 business books of all time. David Marquet is here today to deliver the powerful message that in highly effective organizations, leadership is not for the select at the top. He will tell you how he and the crew of Santa Fe developed a way to create leaders at every level. Please welcome with me at the Socrata Customer Summit, David Marquet.
That's not my first slide. Welcome to the Socrata Customer Summit 2015. Let me back up here. Someone must have been tweaking my tweaker when I was. Welcome. So today I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to be an illustrated, interactive story about what happened on a nuclear submarine where we went from the worst performing, worst morale, worst retention crew to the best. And the interesting thing about the story is how it happened. And it happened by giving the crew control. That's the overriding message that I'm going to leave you with today. So today I'm going to tell you how to be leaders that activate and unlock the talent, the passion, the creativity, and the intellect of the people around you. It's not going to be about how you get anything done, okay? That's down the hall somewhere. But it's going to be how you activate your people so that they can accomplish amazing things. And I said it was interactive. It's going to be interactive. We're going to do some polling here. And here's the very first poll. You're going to go to this website with any kind of web-enabled device, polleb.com/intent. And in a moment, the first poll is going to come up. This is a practice poll, just to sort of take the temperature in the room here. Now I've gotten hidden, so we're going to wait till we get a few results, and then we'll see how we're doing. Oh, okay. Well, all right. I want to see it even. I don't know why. I just like to see it even. All right, so it's working. It seems to be working. That's great. That's great. We're going to keep going. All right, so here's my story. I was one of these sort of these geeky introverted kid in high school. I was on the chess team. I was on the math team. Yeah. Were you on math team too? Yeah. Thanks for admitting that. That's awesome. Math team, for those of you, the uninitiated in here, it's super fun. You get on a little short bus, you go to another school, then you see like who can do math problems faster. It's fun, like I said. In any event, I set my sights on being a submarine captain. Now remember, I grew up in the 70s, and it was really a depressing time in America. The Soviets were kicking our butt all over the planet, plus at the Olympics, we weren't winning any gold medals, and Iran had taken a bunch of hostages, and it was just terrible. And so I said, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. I'm going to do something about that, right? Like the idealism of youth. And I was going to be a submarine captain. That was my contribution. And things got better. Two things happened. One, I joined the submarine force. Two, President Reagan got elected, and then the Soviets closed their hand. I'm not saying it's connected, but might have been. And I set my sights on being a submarine captain. 17 years after I graduated from the Naval Academy, I received an exciting message from the Navy, which said that here are the list of submarine captains we've selected for the next year, and my name was on the list. Next to my name was the name of this submarine, the USS Olympia, which was a fine-running warship out there in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Now, these nuclear submarines are amazing machines. They can stay submerged essentially indefinitely. She makes her own air. She makes her own water. The reactor lasts for 17 years. On the Olympia, you need to refuel the reactor once in the life of the whole ship. And every 90 days, we got to come up just to get food for the human beings on board. And the Olympia was a well-running submarine. When I was assigned to be the captain of the Olympia, even though I'd come up through the ranks as a submarine captain, the Navy pulled me out of my job and sent me to school that for 12 months, all I studied was this ship. I could draw the piping systems. I could draw the electrical diagrams. I could find the breaker boxes in the dark and know which breakers to shut off in case there was a fire. I read the dossiers of all the people, and I'd read the problems the ship had. And there were really a whole lot. I mean, as I said, the Olympia was a well-running submarine out there in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Now, you see this little crosshair up there with that little X? That represents my leadership model at the time, which I call know all, tell all. In other words, as the captain, I was going to tell all. I was going to give all the orders. And since I'd gone to school for all that time, I knew it all. I knew the entire ship. I was literally the smartest person on the planet for that submarine. And this is a very common form of leadership. The know all, tell all leader. Some of you may recognize the know all, tell all leader. And here's why I was that way. It wasn't because I was genetically defective. It was because this is my leadership definition that I learned at the Naval Academy. This comes straight out of my book. Leadership can be defined as directing the thoughts, plans, and actions of others so as to obtain and command their confidence, their obedience, and their loyal respect. Now I ask you, can you direct the thoughts of someone? I've seen it once. Star Wars 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi comes out. These are not the droids you're looking for. And yet, we think we're Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're actually directing the thoughts of people. No, you can't. And we apply this leadership. And here's the next question I got for you guys. How do you think it would feel to work in an environment where that's the leadership poster that your boss has put on his or her wall? This time we're going to build a word cloud. So now you just text in or type in a single word to represent how, there we go, it's starting to work. How you think it would feel? Yeah. Now the way these word clouds work, as most of you know, is the bigger the word gets, that means the more people are sending in that same word. Right. This is how it feels. And then we say, oh, where's your passion? Where's your engagement? Where's your ownership? Like, what are you talking about? You make me feel like this. And then we say, oh, okay, well, we need to do some leadership development. What we have to do is train our leaders how to be better at telling people what to do. That's the problem, right? The problem is we're telling people what to do all the time, and this is how they feel. Now, I've asked this question to about 20,000 people across the planet, 4 continents. This is what the cumulative response that they say. So you can see you're in general agreement with the population of the world. No one feels good about this, and yet this is what we profess to be leadership. Here are the kind of headlines that have come up in the last 12 months in the United States talking about organizational health. Trust is at an all-time low. Employee engagement is at an all-time low. Here's a real kick in the teeth. A recent Harvard-Stanford study came out and said there's 120,000 people die a year from the stress of work, from bad leadership. That means while we're in here, while I'm doing this talk, 14 people die. It's not that funny, really. Yeah, it's horrible. right? We have a shooting and 14 people die, it's a big thing. Every hour, every day, 14 people are dying from bad leadership. It's a tragedy. And the problem is people are applying the wrong kind of leadership. They're out there barking orders and telling people what to do. We're going to turn all that around. Out there in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, there was another submarine, the USS Santa Fe. Now, the USS Santa Fe was what we call the Enron of submarine. The USS Santa Fe had the worst morale and the worst retention and the worst performance scores of any submarine in the fleet. During that 12 months when I went to school to learn about the Olympia, the Santa Fe only re-enlisted 3 sailors out of 135. 35 of which were eligible, only 3 actually re-enlisted. Put it at the bottom of the fleet. The Santa Fe was getting the worst inspection scores, and when she went to sea, things would break and she'd have to come back in. During that school, they would show pictures occasionally of how to run a well-running submarine. Then they'd every once in a while say, well, this is how you don't want to be. And yes, that was the Santa Fe. And we laughed and we giggled and we snickered. Oh, those poor bastards on the Santa Fe. The captain on the Santa Fe was supposed to be there for another year, but he raised his hands a year early, just before I was going to take command of the Olympia, and he said, no mas, and he quit. And the Navy looked around and they said, well, we can't have a submarine without a captain, so Marquet, Santa Fe. I literally thought my life was over. It wasn't because of the bad morale. It wasn't because of the poor performance. The reason was because the Santa Fe was a different kind of submarine than the Olympia. So all that training that I'd gone through for the Olympia was now irrelevant. The Santa Fe was one of the newest submarines in the fleet. She doesn't have the sailplanes like the Olympia has. She has bow planes. She has 12 Tomahawk missile tubes in the front that the Olympia didn't have. She has a different reactor, which lasts the entire life of the ship. Every single piece of gear on the Santa Fe was different than the equipment on the Olympia. And here's the crew. Now, a nuclear submarine, we have officers, chiefs, and the rest of the enlisted guys. The only guys with college degrees on this whole submarine are these officers over here. Some of these other guys might have college degrees, but it's not a requirement. The average age is 26 years old. So basically, it's not like a bunch of PhDs like you might think, but it's just a bunch of good people trying to do good in the world. But the problem was on the Santa Fe, they'd been so beaten up, they were like zombies, they were shuffling around. It was sad and depressing to go down on board the very first time. Nevertheless, get dressed up in my nice white uniform, take command, ready to inspire my new crew. Now, you see where that X is, right? It's down there in the bottom left. That represents what? No, not. But still tell all. Why? It's crazy. It's not a good long-term strategy. But that's just how it was. Captains gave orders, crews followed them. Here we are in the sonar room. Now, you may see in the movies, you may see how sonar works. And you hear this pinging, right? Ping. Ping, ping. There's no pinging. We don't do any of that. All we do is listen, and then we convert the sound, and we analyze it. So these green lines you see up here, this one might be a cruise ship. This one's a school of shrimp. This one's a distant oil well, and that one could be an enemy submarine. So you've got to know the difference. That's important. And then you have all these buttons over here, right? So many buttons. On the Olympia, I could have reached over the shoulder of the sailor and say, oh, no, push this button. That's the degree at which I was trained on every piece of gear from the bow to the stern of the submarine. That's the degree, the detail to which I was trained. On the Santa Fe, I didn't know what those buttons meant. I didn't recognize them. But I asked the sailor, hey, tell me about your buttons. And they say, well, you know, this one does this, this one does this. Hey, what about that one? The poor sailor had forgotten. And like, I forgot, Captain. And they would cringe because they were expecting this. Well, I'll tell you, and you really should know. That was me as Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October. Because that's what I would normally, that's what I would have done on the Olympia. I could have done that. And I was asking questions to make sure they knew, not because I was truly curious. But on Santa Fe, I didn't know. I was like, oh crap, what do I say now? Do I pretend? And like, I couldn't do it. For some reason, I just said, you know, I don't know either. Hey, let's press it and see what happens. We just attacked a cruise ship. That's going to be reportable. Nah, that didn't happen. Chinese Navy, not scary. This, scary. Admitting I didn't know, right? When you live in the know-all, tell-all world as a leader, you can't say, I don't know. And I now think these words, I don't know, are some of the most powerful words any leader can say. Because when you say, I don't know, you make it okay for everyone to say, I don't know. And I don't know opens the door to learning. Whatever you know, you're not going to learn. You only open a door to learning when you say, I don't know. So practice saying, I don't know. Even if you know, once a day, just say, yeah, I don't know. Let's find out. They did a study recently. A couple psychologists walked around the street. They asked people these made-up terms. These were like self-annealing mortgages or something like that. I don't know, they like combined a metallurgical and a financial. It was all nonsense. And they just asked people on the street, hey, do you know about these self-annealing mortgages? Over 90% of the people said yes. Less than 10% of the people could say, I don't know, that something was total nonsense. Now, so that's how hard it is to say, I don't know. So practice saying, I don't know. All right, we're back to another poll. Question for you. If you said, I don't know, would your people go home and tell their friends, you're a good leader or a bad leader? All right, here, if you haven't got there yet, here it is, polev.com/intent. All right, see what we got. Okay, that's not too bad. About 2 to 1. It's good. But I think this is one of our problems because there's a lot of societal expectations about what leaders are. And in a lot of places, saying I don't know is not what leaders say. Oh, it's getting, oh, what? It's getting worse. I'm going to click off it. 20,000 people around the globe, this is what they say. So you guys are pretty close. It's about 2 to 1, like you see, but it's very culturally dependent. I was doing this in Singapore. I did it in China. My book came out in Chinese last year, and the results are they're actually more strongly reversed, like 3 to 1 against. In Singapore, you can't say I don't know. You just apparently can't say it. I had a business CEO was like, I can't say, I can't say I don't know. It's like, are you sure? I don't know. No, I just said it. Okay. Yeah, had fun over there. Anyway, all right, here's the next question, though. If you said the words, I don't know, would your people trust you more or less? What do you think? Yeah, that's interesting. That almost a quarter say they would trust you less. That's pretty high. That's about as high as I've seen. Usually people are like, it's like 90-10 or something like that. So I think saying I don't know is an important element of trust. When, not pretending that you know something that you really actually don't know. Okay. This knob is a very important knob. This is the knob that we use to order the speed of the submarine. We got it from the Royal Navy 200 years ago. It was perfect then, it's perfect now. No need for improvement here. And you can see the speeds, right? Head 1/3, 2/3, standard, full flank. If any of you guys watched Titanic, you remember down in the engine room they had this back emergency. Anyway, so on the submarine, in the control room, you ring this around. It makes a little bell sound. Ching. So you ring that around the head flank. It's awesome. It sends a signal to the engine room. There's a big wheel, the throttleman's spinning the wheel, the valves are opening up, steam from the reactor is going into the turbines, and the whole submarine is surging through the water. And because of the torque from the propeller, it actually heels over like this. You surge through the depths of the Pacific Ocean. It's awesome, like I said. You guys should be proud. You taxes pay for these machines. But here's what we're going to do. I took command. You saw the picture. 2 weeks. Took us 2 weeks to finish putting the submarine together. We're going to sea. Very first day at sea, worst performing crew in the fleet. What are we going to do? I'm going to run some exercises on my own crew. The first exercise we're going to run is we're going to shut down the reactor, and we're going to we actually shut it down, but there's a pretend problem. Now, when you shut down the reactor, you get into a race where you got to get the reactor started before the battery drains out. Because when you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's no charging stations. So here we are. I'm in the control room of the submarine. We're a couple hundred miles off the coast of Hawaii. We shut down the reactor. The officer of the deck is the navigator. He's the most experienced officer on the submarine. Me, 2 weeks on the ship. Tim, 2 years. He's doing all the right things. He's shifting propulsion over to, we have this little electric motor that we use to run the submarine off the battery. The electric motor is 300 horsepower. It's trying to push a 6,500 ton submarine is like driving your car with your electric toothbrush. So you don't go too fast. And he's running along at a head 1/3 on the electric motor. He's conserving electricity because he wants to extend the time of the battery to give the engineers as much time as possible to fix the problem with the reactor. He's doing all the right things. Well, I start thinking, you know, we got to make it hard. So we're going to speed up to a head 2/3. Now, every submarine I'd been on before, which were all older submarines, there was always 2 speeds, 1/3 and 2/3 on the electric motor. With the reactor, you go all the way around the flank, but with the electric motor, you only get those 2. So I say, hey, Nav, not an order, just a suggestion from the captain. Hey, why don't we go ahead 2/3 on the electric motor? Helm, ahead 2/3. He orders it right away. Nothing happened. The poor kid is sitting at this panel. He's like, his shoulders are going like this. I say, hey, helmsman, what's going on? Why no, you know, ringing of the bell? And I had 2/3. He says, Captain, on this submarine, there's only 1/3. There's no 2/3 on the electric motor. Good job. You got me. That was embarrassing. And the Navy had, you know, when they went to the newest submarine, they simplified things when they decided we only needed 1 speed. So I was basically asking them to shift into, you know, a gear that the submarine didn't have. Not a big deal, but a mistake. That was repeated by the officer. So I said, hey, Nav, did you know about this? Yes, sir, I did. I said, riddle me this. Why did you order it? And what did he say? You told me to. Exactly. We train people to do what they're told. We train people to be compliant. We say, you sit here and report for that person. Don't ask too many hard questions in meetings. And then we sprinkle fairy dusting out there and say, oh, but we really want you to think and have your creativity and passion and engagement. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. My life flashed before my eyes. I saw 2 worlds. In one world, I always gave good orders. I gave good orders. My crew followed them. There was life and happiness. But if every once in a while I gave a bad order, my crew was still going to follow it. And there'd be death. Our death. And unhappiness. I said, stop the exercise. Start the reactor. Officers coming out of the wardroom. We talked about, for me, my instinct was to put it out there, like, you guys need to be more empowered. You guys need to be more proactive. You guys need to take more initiative. You guys need to give me, like there was a lot of you guys, right? That's BS leadership, okay? Finally, this one young kid in the back, he's been raising his hand for the last 45 minutes of this conversation. I'm not picking on him because he's brand new to submarine, like what could he know? Finally say, okay, Captain, I have the answer. Do tell. Points to me. You got to be quiet. I think this kid has not seen too many submarine movies. That is not what submarine captains do. I kept my mouth shut. That was really good. I said, you know, I think you're right. It's the only way out of this box. So we talked about that for a minute. So I said, how about this? How about I just never tell you, I never give you guys another order. Because if I give you an order, you're going to follow it. It's only going to be random chance whether it's good or bad. So I'm going to stop giving you orders. Okay. Does anyone know what that looks like? No. Anyone seen it before? Is it better than death? Yeah. Let's try it. And that's kind of how we set down this path. Now, I told you that the crew was beaten down and despondent. They were turned into zombies because their objective every day was to not make mistakes. And when your objective is not to make a mistake, what is the best way to do that? Don't do anything, right? Or only do exactly what you're told. So in an environment where avoiding mistakes is the objective, then you're biased over here into this passive, don't do anything world. And you may all be, you're all out there saying, oh yeah, that's not me. But there are a lot of programs out there that the sole purpose is to reduce the number of errors. And errors are very easy to count. So we all have some status boards that says here's the number of mishaps, here's the number of whatever. All those kind of things are we're going to bias your organizations towards passivity. I needed a bias towards action. So you have to replace avoiding errors with achieving excellence. Errors are always embedded inside of excellence. Inside of awesomeness, there are always errors. The path to mediocrity is through this avoiding errors. And the other thing is I needed them to do something. I can't say, well, I'm not going to give you orders and you guys are just going to wait for an order, right? When I sort of, in my mind, I was like, oh, nothing's going to happen. We're just going to cruise in a straight line. 5 days later, oh, hey, look, we discovered Japan, you know? So he said this, just say, I intend to. Don't ask permission. Don't give me a problem without a solution. Don't say, request permission to do this. Just say, Captain, I intend to submerge a ship. And this has been awesome. We now call this intent-based leadership. The leaders give intent, not instruction, and the team gives their intent, not permission, back to the leader. There's a guy named Coach Brian Green. He's the coach of the University of New Mexico baseball team. He used to be the assistant coach at Kentucky. He called me one day and said, you know, we went from worst to first in batting because of your book. I said, oh, that's interesting. Do tell. So I realized I was doing the same thing. The kids were coming up to bat, and I was coaching them. I was telling them what to do, how to handle each pitcher, you know, just before they went up to bat. So I stopped telling them what to do. They would come up and they would tell me what their plan was for the pitcher. Hey, for this guy, I'm going to choke up, I'm going to stand close to the plate, I'm going to, you know, whatever. I'm going to just let the first one go by and see what it looks. And we went from the worst in the batting to the best in the batting. They signed a kid in the majors for over $1 million. It was the first time Kentucky ever did that. And then assistant coach Green got hired to be a head coach at another school. All awesome things because of the power of stopping telling people what to do. Stop trying to control people. Oh, by the way, so then now where am I, right? I'm not giving any orders. I'm in know not, tell not, right? That's also not a good long-term strategy as a leader because after a few months, people are like, and why are we paying you again? Tell not. And then, you know, partly because I could say, I don't know, partly because I was curious, I learned the ship very, very well. And I became, as much as anyone could, a know-all leader again. But because I'd seen the power of not telling people what to do, I rested over here as a know-all, tell-not leader. And I think this is the most powerful place for leaders to be. We get to blow stuff up in the Navy. Again, torpedoes don't hit the side of the ship like you see in the movies. They go under the ship, detonate, they blow a hole in the ocean, ship falls into the hole, breaks in half, and then we have what we call over here a non-combat effective vessel. And it takes one torpedo to do that, okay? So the Chinese send me 20 ships, they're going to have 20 ships that look like that. Or, I'm sorry, any would-be adversary. These torpedoes are big deals. You don't want to drop them. Here we are. We're in Sasebo, Japan. We're loading a torpedo. It's that green shape on the front. If you see this wash up on the beach, don't touch it. Call the government. Anyway, so before we would load a torpedo, we would have what we called a brief. And we had this big book, the book of loading torpedoes. And we say, we will now have a reading from the book of loading torpedoes. Upon a signal from the crane operator, you shall do this, you should. And this would go on for an hour. And then we say, any questions? No questions. Everyone killed themselves. They're so boring. And I realized one day, you know what? This is just another way of telling people what to do. Even though I vowed not to tell people what to do, over and over and over again, I discovered I was secretly, or not necessarily me personally, but we had organizational constructs, we had rituals, we had habits, we had practices, we had best practices that were just telling people what to do. You show up to a brief and you get told what to do. So we canceled all the briefs because every time you're telling people what to do, you're shutting down their brains. And then we say, hey, and we replace it with a thing called a certification. We say, hey, we're going to load a torpedo. What's your job? What are you going to be thinking about? What decisions might you have to make? What are you worried about? Worry? Oh, me? Nothing. Yeah, try again. And we had these conversations, and then the person in charge would make a decision. We're ready to move forward. This is the critical thing. Now we're starting to talk to hospitals and healthcare people about this. Has anyone gone for a scheduled medical procedure and had the doctor come out and say, you know, my team's just not ready? Does that happen? Right. So what that's telling you is one of two things. Either they're always ready, impossible, or they're not making a decision, right? They're saying it's 10 o'clock, you know, rolling Mr. Jones. And this is the way too many organizations operate. We don't make decisions that we're ready. Now, sure, we go around, we say, you know what, you don't really know your job. We're not really ready to load this torpedo. Is it embarrassing for me to call the captain of the tender who's senior to me and say, you know what, my team's not ready, I need 2 hours? Yes. Is it better than dropping a torpedo? Yes. Okay? So this is where the courage of leadership comes from. So leaders adopt a know-all, tell-not mindset. If you want to focus on getting the task done, yeah, tell people all day long. But a month from now, you'll still be over here. 2 months from now, a year, 10 years from now, you're going to be over. You never get out of here. You focus on ensuring ownership. Where your people get the task done, you go over here. Here's a team that really hard to tell them what to do. Right? We're loading SEALs on the submarine. That's what's happening here. We have the equipment for SEALs, but we don't actually carry SEALs. The reason we don't carry SEALs, because SEALs are highly tuned human specimens, and they have to work out a lot. So we actually have to start a timer when they come on board the submarine, and we have to get them off to do their mission within a certain period of time, because apparently their bodies deteriorate. The submarine's a toxic place if you're a SEAL. Of course, my crew and I lived there for 6 months. Seems fine for us. Anyway, so what happens is you get a message, you go to some part of the ocean, you surface, a helicopter flies by, you can see them, you know, they're sliding down the rope, right? This is a highly chaotic event. Chaotic in the sense that the wind may shift, a wave may come in a slightly different direction, a rope may flop. These are highly unpredictable events, so the team needs to be able to respond to all those things. And the propellers are going, it's so loud you can't even talk to people, so they just all individually have to know what they're going to do. Here's what it looks like for me on the bridge of the submarine. I took this picture. It's scary. Don't be too scared, though. I had a hard hat on. Thinking this hard hat, you know, this goes south of the propeller blades. I couldn't do. Yeah, anyway. I can't even see them, right? Can't control. Amazing things happen. Number one, the crew of the Santa Fe, which was the worst, this beaten down Enron submarines, 12 months later was evaluated by the Navy, the formal Navy inspection team, and they received the highest score that the Navy had records for operating the submarine, ever. Same people. Didn't fire a single person. Number two, we went from re-enlisting 3 sailors out of 35 to 35 out of 35. The very next year, we had 35 sailors eligible to re-enlist. Every single one of them signed on. And I would argue that they were working harder. We were demanding more. We were demanding more accountability and more responsibility, and we were asking them to engage their brains more than before. It's easy to come to work and just do what you're told. It's easy, but it's not satisfying. What I was asking them to do was hard, but it was so fulfilling and enriching because they had the ability to make decisions for something that mattered. And they signed up for it. because they loved it. People don't want easy, they want agency, they want purpose. So I got a phone call. I was a big fan of Dr. Covey, and I got a phone call one day. Dr. Covey wants to ride my submarine. Dr. Covey. I was so excited. And we picked him up a couple weeks later we picked him up off of Lahaina, Maui. It was just one of these beautiful, crystal clear days. South of Maui is the big island of Hawaii and the mountaintops of Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea, which you could see. They were 100 miles away. I could see them. I could see the bottom of the ocean 100 feet down. Dolphins were jumping. It was a Disney kind of movie thing. And Covey comes on board. He walks around. He sees the I intend to. He sees all the stuff that we're doing. He sees the certifications, no briefing. And he's really quiet. And then he comes up to me and says, this is the most empowering workplace I've ever seen. I go, well, thank you very much, sir. Now, I didn't like the word empowerment because I thought it was kind of polluted and vague and no one really knew what it meant. So I said, well, you know, we don't use the word empowerment, but for you it's okay. Then he said, and I haven't seen you give any orders. I really didn't expect that. I said, yeah, I'm kind of out of the order giving business. And then he said, yeah. And then he said, and I know how you're doing this. Really? Because remember, at the beginning, we had no idea how this process was going to work. And he stitched together this, that we were kind of going back and forth on the bridge of the submarine. He said, well, I think when you hear someone say, tell me what to do, you play the next higher card. You say, what do you think? And then they say, what do you recommend? What would you like to do? What do you intend to do? Maybe even just, hey, do it, and just report that it's done. He said, yeah, that seems right. And it's very useful because it was 6 graduated steps. Then poor Dr. Covey puts his head down. He's rubbing his forehead like this. I think he's gone seasick or something. I say, Dr. Covey, are you all right, sir? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm kind of a 7 guy, so we need to have 7. So he came up with this one. This is exactly how it happened. I think this is one of the greatest leadership hacks of all time, because it takes this nebulous concept of empowerment and allows you to measure it. This is the thermometer for empowerment. And as you all know, if you want to get something better at something, you got to measure it. You got to be able to measure it. And so empowerment programs fail because we say, thou shalt be empowered. Well, how much? Well, you know, a little bit more than what you are. Okay. And so we can't measure it. We don't know where we're doing. We don't feel a sense of accomplishment as we move up. All those things are taken care of with this. It's measurable because it's based on what people say. So I can just listen. I just get attuned to listening and say, oh, I think this person's at a level 1. There are a lot of people at level 1. Camouflage level 1. Right? They don't bluntly say, tell me what to do, but they camouflage it like, hey, there's a problem here. And then you're supposed to jump in and say, oh, yeah, I see that. You know what? You should do this. And then you feel good because you solved the problem. But what you did was you deprived them of the ability to grow into a leader. So what we would say is like, oh, yeah, what do you think we should do? I don't know. You're the leader. I think you should tell me. Here's a question for you. Let's say you get that person. What do you think you should, that tell me what to do person, and you say, what do you think? And they're like, well, you tell me. And they just seem stuck at tell me what to do. What keeps people stuck at tell me what to do? Text in your words. Failure, unmotivated doubt, anxiety, mistakes, insecure, role play, expectations, lazy, and fear. Okay, good. 20,000 people across the planet, this is what they say. Fear is consistently the biggest word. If fear is the problem, So what does that mean for us as leaders? It means for us that what we need to do is make people feel safe. In the old industrial age world where work was doing, work was mechanical, work was physical, fear was fine. Stress really didn't matter. But in the new world where work is thinking, which by the way is a new concept. We come to work and, quote, even now we say we come to work and do our jobs, right? We have to-do lists, not to-think lists. We don't come to work and think our jobs. But over here, if you want people to be creative, you want them to bring their internal passion and energy, you got to make them feel, you got to make it safe for them. You got to recognize the dangers on the outside, but inside we got to make it safe. I can't be worried about John on that next desk talking bad about me when I miss the next meeting, and bring my full passion and energy to work. So fear is the problem for our people, but it's also the problem for us. Now you may say, oh, I'm a great leader. I'm like, hey, what do you think? I'm always, I'm patient, I take time, I listen. Unless you're under stress, unless you're tired, you have some time pressure, or you have your own fears. And all those things push you down to the bottom of the ladder. All those things are going to make you more expedient to just say, look, I just need you to do this. Right? Don't ask any questions. And you might get the work done today, but you're not going to be building leaders. And we've got companies now across the country that are adopting this in ways to create leaders. Get people to think. How about this? What do you think about McDonald's? Right? McDonald's, you would think, would be a highly tell me what to do kind of place, right? People go out and, make those fries. Now go out there and, sell some hamburgers, right? No. This is a big McDonald's franchise we're working with, and they're getting their people to think, and they're totally revolutionizing what's happening. Their stores have almost universally raving reviews. The people love it. Retention has gone through the roof. No one quits. And the profits are up 12% year over year. This is what happens when we take the time to give our people control and let them act with the human empowerment that they have. Okay, now, I'm showing this graph to talk about a mistake that I made on the submarine, because I think there's a relationship between empowerment or control and the competence of the team, the ability of the team to do their job, which we're going to break down into competence and clarity. Competence is the technical things, like can I code, do I know the laws of physics, that kind of thing. Clarity is what's the purpose of the organization. And what we did on the submarine was we were sort of below the line over here on the right, and I gave people a lot of authority and went straight up, but we didn't spend enough time building competence and clarity, and we had some problems. If that's what you do, you end up in chaos. You have people who don't know how to make good decisions making decisions. That's not good, especially on a nuclear submarine. At the same time, if you have these highly trained, highly paid, highly competent people, but you never give them the ability to make decisions, then there's a lot of frustration. And only along that diagonal is the viable places where you can operate your organization. So it's a strategic decision is where on this diagonal do we want to operate. And leaders trust first, right? Here's the most important thing about this graph. That first arrow goes up, not across, right? Most people think, oh, when you demonstrate the competence and clarity, the ability to do more, I'll then grudgingly give you more authority. That's the path to paralysis. That's not how it works. That's why leaders get paid the medium bucks. Because the leader has to say first, what do you think? Right? If you could make this decision, what would you do? If I weren't here, how would you do this? Well, I would call you. Well, then your cell phone broke. Then what you would do? Well, I would call you. No. I really need to know what you think here. It's time for you to grow into a leader. The leader has to go first. But it's small steps. Then you build a little, then you give a little more control, build a little, give more control, build a little, and you just move up there relentlessly. All right, question for you. Think about your organization. And the question is, do you think you're on that line, above it, in the chaos zone, or below it in the frustration zone. Okay, good. This is a good thing to go back and ask your team. You know, just give them the graph and have them put a dot on the chart or something. If you're in a frustration zone, it's pretty easy. You know what to do. You know you need to give your people more authority. The ability to make decisions is empowerment. Don't give them a speech on empowerment. That's a waste of time. Just give them more authority. Say, you know what, you get to make this decision now. Okay? If you're up on the chaos side, you need to build competence and clarity. You need to spend more time on training. But if you're going to go down this path, you're going to spend more time on training and communication. Okay? It's not just, I just give you the ability to make decisions and I'm done. That's not a program. Okay, we're back in the sonar room. See this kid up here? His name is Robinson. He looks like a pretty happy kid. I walked through the submarine one day and I kind of bump into him and he's looking dour. He's staring at his shoes. I say, hey Robinson, what's going on? Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go home and visit my mom. She's in Texas and she's not doing well. She's in the hospital. Remember, we were in Hawaii. I said, oh, okay, smart question. Did you submit your vacation form? He said, well, yes, Captain, actually I did submit my vacation form about a month ago. Now, in the Navy, the second in command of the submarine signs the vacation form. So that's 6 people. It's the department, the division chief, Andy Warshak, you see sitting right behind him, the department chief, the chief of the boat, the division officer, the department head, and then the executive officer. 6 people. So the form has to go up, it gets signed, and it comes back down. So I ran around, I found this kid's form, we got it signed, we gave it to him, it was kind of like a hero for the moment. I thought about the problem, and in the past, because, oh, by the way, this happens on every organization, we would put together some process action team, and we'd figure out how to lean the process, and you generate a bunch of PowerPoint slides. Feel good about ourselves. Document it. Anyway, I said, you know what, this doesn't feel like the right answer. And so what I did was I took my Navy regulations book, and I took this big black marker, and where it said second in command, I just went right through it, and I wrote the chief of the boat. So we're going to have this guy, the supervisor, and one other guy sign this form. And I call this now pushing authority to information, not information to authority. Too many organizations take information, they collect it all at the bottom, all the people know what's going on, they channel it up to the top for a decision, and then the decision comes back down. That's not how you're going to win in the 21st century. The way you're going to win in the 21st century is you're going to take the ability to make the decision, the authority that traditionally rests up here, and you're going to push it down to those people who have the information. And they're just going to make the decisions. And your organization is going to run laps around organizations that do it the other way around. We don't push information to authority, we push authority to information. Oh, by the way, you can get all kinds of software that's going to help you push information to authority. Lots of software to help you do that. There's no software I know of that's going to help you do that. So this is a big opportunity, because this is how organizations are winning in the 21st century. We had a very dedicated adherence to language. We really paid attention to language. I'll give you one example here. We have these exit signs, which are great. If there's a fire, we go out the exit. But you know, on a submarine, how many fire exits? 0. You got to put the fire out. So we would train, and remember, the Santa Fe wasn't really doing that well when I got there. So you're supposed to get that hose there in 2 minutes. It'd be 2 minutes, 2:15, 2:30, 2:45, 3:50. You know, 3-4 minutes before the hose would get there. And then we get together and say, hey, what happened? Well, they did this. They didn't pressurize the hose. They hung the equipment upside twisted. They didn't change the bath. You know, it was all this day. And I finally got pissed off, and I said, there's no they on Santa Fe. And it rhymed. So they remembered it. So we're only going to use the word we from now on. It was super awesome. So the next day, the engineer walks up to me, and he says, hey, Captain, bad news. The repairs to the pump will be delayed because He's trying to say they, the supply department. We ordered the wrong part. And then he just kind of left. He just... We had all these days, right? Like supply department was they to engineering, and weapons was they to ops, and the officers were they to enlisted guys. We had all these days. And you can walk through your organization and just ask people about different parts of the organization. And whenever you use the word they, it's not a team. We use the word team, we, to refer to our team. Then you'll know they feel like a team when they're using the word we. But the reverse is also true. Using the word we will train our brains to feel like we're a team. And we had this senior officer come down 6 months later, and he said, "This is the most amazing culture of teamwork I've ever seen. This feels like a team like no other submarine." And I kind of joked with the guy. I said, we don't have a culture. What we have is a rule that we use the word we. But what had happened was we had actually rewired our brains. By just saying the word we repeatedly, we had rewired our brains, and we felt like a team. The action comes first. We act our way to new thinking, not think our way to new action. So pay attention to where the we-they boundary is in your organization. And finally, leaders give control and create leaders. They don't take control and attract followers that got gone. It's all about giving up control. Now, I've talked about your brain and rewiring your brain. We have we have a series of things we call nudges. Because the cool thing is, your same brain you carry with you all day long. So if you can train your brain outside of work to do something, it'll help you inside of work. And you're all wired as control freaks because you're all mammals, and mammals are wired to take control. So here's an example of one of these nudges. I'm talking to the guy who founded Geek Squad and then later sold it to Best Buy. And so anyway, you'll see. Here we go. I'm here with my friend Robert Stevens, founder of Geek Squad. We're talking about ways of giving up control, and he has a tip. We just came out of this restaurant, nice Italian restaurant for lunch. He's got a tip for how to give up control in a fun way. Robert.
Yeah, good tip in two parts.
Two-part tip.
You practice every day. You go to the restaurant and you tell the waiter, you pick, all right? You pick the drinks, you pick the meal, and don't play it safe. That's the key.
I love the don't play it safe part. So, next time you go out to lunch, let the waiter pick, and add this, don't play it safe. Yeah. And some people say, that's no big deal. And they say, yeah. And they go to the restaurant, like, okay, yeah, tell me your top three, and then I'll choose. No, that's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you pick. I don't even know what it is until it shows up. Now, if you want to bound it and say, look, I don't eat, mammals. Like my thing is I don't eat mammals. So I don't eat mammals. So anything without a mammal on it, you can bring it. So then he's like, what's a mammal? I'm like, and that sounds like sort of trivial, but it's so powerful because the same feelings that come up, the same issues. Like if you don't want to do that, sounds too scary, just go out here and when you go get coffee, to have the person in line next to you say, hey, please choose my coffee for me. Right? It's just coffee. If you can't give up control for these kind of things, how are you going to go to work and go to your team and say, team, it's your decision? Right? But the cool thing is if you do this, it lets you know how it feels. I never really say we get comfortable with it, but at least you know how it feels. You say, when those feelings come, you go, yeah, this is right. This is what it's supposed to feel like when I'm a leader. So we have a bunch of these. You can enroll in these nudges. They come out once a week. It's a little video. It's usually like me being kind of goofy like that. But there's these little things, and they just get you to become more like a leader who unleashes the power in their team. So with your phone, you text the word nudge, that short code, 44144. We shoot you a thing that says, we ask for your email and your name, and we'll let you be on our program. And if you don't open these for a while, we drop you. So this is not like a newsletter where I'm trying to collect names. This is for you guys. We got 10,000 leaders who get these things every week and are working on their control issues. Hey, for me it was a great news story. We won all these awards. The submarine did really, really well. I got promoted. And then later in my career I ended up going to what ended up being a toxic work environment for me. And I told you about the 120,000 people that die a year from stress, and I was almost one of those people. I was working in this job. It was stressful, not from the stress of the real stress of what we were trying to do, but just from the people who I was working for and with, just being bad people. But I was tolerating it, which I don't think anyone ever should do. My wife was saying, you know, what are you doing? Why are you? And I was like, oh, I'm going to run the Navy someday. And she's like, you got to get a physical. I got checked out. I got discharged from the Navy. I was 90% disabled. I had 6 different categories of disabilities. I was refused life insurance, and my life expectancy was 7 years. This was, I'm going to tell you, this was 6 years and 51 weeks ago. So I'm going to have a huge party in about 1 week. I'm getting better. I am getting better. But here's the deal, and I hope this never happens to you. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, like, this is it. And it were dark days, and I was like, what is it all about? What did my life mean? And all those awards and all those achievements and all those accomplishments, they faded from memory. And the only thing that stuck with me were the people who I touched and the people who went on to achieve things in their lives that they never thought possible, somehow because I believed in them. And that's why I wrote the book. It wasn't the turnaround. That's just kind of the hook. It's telling the story of the people who went on to achieve amazing things. And as officer after officer after officer after officer after officer, finally we had 10 officers from just this one crew became captains of submarines, and the same kind of things were happening in the enlisted ranks. And I believe that when you act as leaders, when you do you get to choose. It's going to be hard, but our legacy is going to be this world where everyone on the planet is contributing their full intellectual capacity, and wouldn't that be awesome? Thank you very much.